What in the world is happening with these mystery drones? I've been busy traveling on an interview circuit for the last week, and I've not had the opportunity to make a video for my YouTube channel regarding this phenomenon. I know many of you have been asking me to chime in about it, to give you guys my opinion. I apologize for the delay. I just got back yesterday. I was gone for a week, and I have actually been talking about this extensively on other people's podcasts. But I've really been able to develop my thoughts, and I have some interesting information to convey to you today. Most of you have probably heard a lot of this before. There's really not a whole lot new that can be said about this phenomenon. So let's begin by addressing what I think is the most important thing to discuss right up front when talking about this so-called mystery drone phenomenon. What we're seeing right now at this point is a lot of hysteria. We are witnessing mass hysteria. There's a lot of old videos of aerial phenomena that are presently circulating on social media that have absolutely nothing to do with the current situation, okay? I've seen videos that are several years old of various aerial phenomena, whether they be UFO videos or drone videos that have come out of China and other places around the world that are being conflated with what's going on right now on the eastern seaboard. Many videos are surfacing that are depicting conventional aircraft, which are being mistaken for drones. That's happening, and that's a part of the hysteria. As I said, this phenomenon has entered a mass hysteria phase. I personally have not seen any convincing evidence that this particular phenomenon is currently happening anywhere else. I know there's a lot of talk out there that this is not exclusive to the United States, that this is actually unfolding elsewhere in the world. And understand that UFO sightings are always happening all over the world. And there's a tendency right now for people to discard certain contingencies because they believe that this phenomenon is not localized. In other words, it's not just happening in the United States. I think that that's actually a false assumption right now. I think that there may be some UFO activity. As I said, there's always UFO activity happening all over the world. But I personally believe at this juncture that this particular phenomenon is primarily unfolding in the continental United States. I should note that in recent history, there was some anomalous aerial activity that was occurring in the airspace over military installations in the United Kingdom, and this was happening in previous months, but not currently, as far as I'm aware. That was something that was happening, I don't remember when, some months ago, and there was some news coverage of that. But again, as far as I'm aware, it's not concurrent with what's unfolding here in the United States. I do want to state emphatically that the present so-called drone phenomenon is real, it is happening, and has not hitherto been adequately explained. It is not just helicopters and airplanes. You have certain characters out there in the political realm who are very adamant that this is a mundane case of mistaken identity by people who are just taking pictures and video footage of helicopters and airplanes. That is not the case. Okay, there is something very strange afoot. Airports have been shut down because of this drone activity. So airports are not going to shut down, obviously, for, as I said, mundane aerial activities such as helicopters and airplanes. Okay, so we know that we are beyond the realm of a prosaic explanation here. So let's discuss some of the peculiarities that define the present situation, the present phenomenon. These objects, these drones, I think we should state first and foremost that these drones do not have normal audio and transponder signatures. That seems to be clear. They're not emitting your typical drone transponder signatures, at least in some cases. So that's right out of the gates. That's very anomalous. And there are also some very interesting capabilities that are being exhibited by some of the drones. Some of them appear to be silent, or at least are perceived to be silent. They appear to have radar jamming capabilities, and they seem to be able to disable nearby electronics, at least in some of the cases. Okay, this is a very complex phenomenon, and I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. I think some of the objects in the sky have been reported to be silent, radar jamming, and have the ability to disable nearby electronics. That has been observed. I think we can say those three things fairly conclusively at this stage. It's also very important to note that the drones are displaying, in most cases, FAA regulation lighting. Okay, according to the FAA, aircraft must have the following lights for night operations. They have to have a green light on the right cabin side or wingtip, a red light on the left cabin side or wingtip, a white position light on the tail, flashing aviation red or white anti-collision lights, light covers and light filters that are flame resistant and don't change color or shape. Those light configurations are observed on most of the craft that are being photographed and filmed. This is a very important piece of this puzzle. Okay, so most of the craft flying over New Jersey and that have been sighted on the eastern seaboard that are concurrent with this phenomenon are displaying FAA regulation nighttime lighting. One of the members in my community, Robin, has noted that recent daytime photos of a particular aircraft reveal unequivocally that at least some of the objects being filmed at night over New Jersey can be identified as the Pterodynamics XP-4 trans-wing drone, which is being developed for the U.S. Navy. The XP-4 has a trans-wing design, which means that it is capable of both rotary blade and fixed-wing flight. In other words, it can fly like a quadcopter, a drone, and a fixed-wing airplane. It's approximately 13 feet wide by 6 feet long, which may resolve some of the reports of drones being the size of cars and SUVs. It was specifically designed to operate in high wind conditions at sea. It's capable of vertical takeoff and landing. It has, at minimum, a 1 hour flight time. But the flight time can probably be significantly augmented. I think we can assume that flight time can be augmented. It may, and this is just me speculating, it may have stealth, radio jamming, and counter-drone capabilities, which is to say that it can interfere with the electrical signals of drones that attempt to approach it. This would make a lot of sense if the Navy is developing, or if any branch of the military is developing drones for military or surveillance application, that these drones would have onboard electrical jamming capabilities so that they can jam radar and they can jam other drones that are coming into proximity. Counter-drone capabilities. The XP-4 is capable of changing its rotor and wing configuration mid-flight. which is consistent with some of the morphing light patterns that have been observed from the mystery drones and the delta shape patterns that have been observed. And again, almost all of these sightings are taking place at night, so what people are seeing essentially are various patterns of lights. Now these drones, this is a very, very important point, again, that Robin from my members community did a post about this in the community. These drones have been seen traveling up and down the New Jersey coastline quite a bit. This is one of the primary areas of the sightings, is on the New Jersey coastline. Now, their flight paths happen to be in the vicinity of the Joint McGuire-Dix Lakehurst base, which is home to the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division, the NAWCAD. Folks, this cannot be coincidental, okay? This cannot be coincidental. So as we're contemplating the mystery drone situation unfolding in the United States, in the continental United States, we must be cognizant of the XP4 pterodynamics, fixed wing and rotary aircraft. We have to be cognizant of this particular aircraft. It is in the mix, okay? That has been confirmed. There have been daytime sightings of this craft. It's in the mix. I think that this, to some extent, resolves some of what's being seen out there at nighttime, but not entirely, okay? This is a very complex phenomenon. Nephilim and the gods of the old world. UFOs and alien abduction. Transhumanism and artificial intelligence. Wars and rumors of wars are all converging at the end of the age in fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Join me and other engaging speakers in beautiful Bozeman, Montana for an epic event like no other. NephCon 2025. What began on Hermon ends at Armageddon. As I said, these lights are primarily being seen on the eastern seaboard, and particularly in New Jersey, but activity has been reported in Florida and California. So it's not limited to the East Coast. These craft have been seen flying over critical infrastructure, restricted airspace, and sensitive installations. We're talking about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, Andrews Air Force Base, Langley Air Force Base, the Capitol building. There was reports of drones flying over the Capitol building, and even President Trump's properties. Trump actually recently canceled a visit to one of his New Jersey properties precisely due to drone activity. The White House and DOD messaging has been confusing and contradictory, to say the least. And actually is quite reminiscent of the Chinese spy balloon debacle that unfolded last year. This very reminiscent of the spy balloon situation. This is different. This was a different phenomenon. But there are some similar aspects here. Both the White House and the Pentagon have stated that the drones are not part of a government or military operation. The drones are not foreign adversaries, according to the White House and Pentagon. The drones are, now this is interesting, the Pentagon has stated that the drones are operating lawfully, which is contradictory to the sightings that people have had of these craft over restricted airspace. So if they're operating lawfully, the only way, conceivably, that these craft can be operating lawfully over restricted airspace is if they're ours. Okay? Otherwise, hobbyists are not going to be allowed to wantonly fly drones over restricted airspace. That's not going to happen. And obviously, if it's a foreign actor, there's no such thing as a foreign actor lawfully flying a drone over restricted airspace, over military base, or over the Capitol building. So that's very contradictory. They've stated that they don't know what they are or where they're coming from, but, again, the White House and Pentagon say, but there is no evidence that these drone sightings pose a national security or public safety threat or have a foreign nexus. Now, that is obviously a baffling contradiction. How can you not know what these things are or where they're coming from, but at the same time be confident that they don't pose a national security or public safety threat? That's absurd. On its face, that's absurd. Those two things are contradictory. So what can we deduce here? There are a few things that we can logically deduce. Specifically, there are two things. And I've been saying this in the various podcasts that I've been doing for other people, and I've been appearing on other people's podcasts. So a couple of those podcasts are not yet public. They're going to be published after Christmas. But I have been saying that there's really only two possibilities here as it pertains to the White House and the Pentagon. A, they absolutely know what these drones are, what these objects are, and they are lying. They're telling us that they don't know what they are or where they come from, when in fact they do. Okay, that is a distinct possibility, one of only two. The second possibility is that they don't know. They don't know what these drones are, where they're coming from, and this means that they are utterly incompetent. Okay, this means that the government is utterly incompetent. We have satellite technology that can see in infrared from outer space and in other spectrums as well. We have also a ground-penetrating radar that operates off of a satellite platform. We have all kinds of technology deployed in outer space, and there's no way that the government does it. In my estimation, there's no way that the government doesn't know what these things are. I agree with President Trump. Again, there's only two options here. Either they know what they are and they're lying to the public about it, or they don't know and they're utterly incompetent. But I personally believe that they know what they are. It's inconceivable to me that the government doesn't know. And even if the answer is, well, there's some form of UFO, at least they know that much. So I'm going to go with A, they do know what's going on, they do know what these craft are, and they are lying to us. Anything else is really inconceivable. I don't think that we can pin this one up to incompetence. I'm sure there's a lot of incompetence in play here, but it seems inconceivable to me that with all the technology we have deployed out there, including drone technology, helicopters, our spy planes, that we don't have visuals and we haven't collected data. I mean, it's been over a month now. We have data. We know what these are, in my estimation. Okay, that's my opinion. If you enjoy my analysis on these topics and would like to hear more from me, I invite you to join the Alberino Analysis Members Community, where you will gain access to my weekly private briefings, live stream Q&A sessions, behind-the-scenes updates on my current projects and expeditions, community features that facilitate interaction with myself and other members, early access to tickets for events I happen to be conducting, and a convenient mobile app to keep you notified and up to date on everything I publish. In addition to all this, annual subscribers will be treated to an advanced screening of 3 episodes in a TV series I've been working on for several years. These films alone are worth the price of admission. The Alberino Analysis Members Community is the best way to connect with me and support my work. If you would like to become a member, you can find a link to the subscription page in the description of this video, or visit thealberinoanalysis.com. I hope to see you in our community. Many congressmen have made public statements now about the phenomenon, and some, like Representative Nancy Mace, Senator Josh Hawley, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, have publicly stated that they are not ruling out ETs, okay? They're not ruling out UAP activity. While other congressmen, interestingly enough, like Representative Tim Burchett, are convinced that this is an incursion by a foreign adversary, such as China or Russia or perhaps even Iran, backed by China. Interesting that Tim Burchett, who is really spearheading the discussion at the congressional level about UFOs, does not believe that these constitute a UFO flap. In other words, he believes that this has something to do with foreign adversaries. Many of the ufologists, such as my colleague Richard Dolan, many of the ufologists that I respect, are not yet ready to commit to any particular proposition in regard to these objects. In other words, they're not yet ready to declare them as UFOs or foreign assets or anything else. I'm in that camp currently, and I think it's wise, I think it's prudent to reserve a final conclusion in regard to this phenomenon because there are so many moving parts and it is so bizarre. But as I've said, as I've already established, at the very least, we can definitively conclude, okay, that the pterodynamic XP4 is in play. Okay, the XP4 is definitely in play in this scenario. So at least some of the drones are conventional technology and are in fact drones. There are in fact drones out there. I think that's definitive at this point. I made an X post a few days ago as I was traveling. I made a quick X post on my initial thoughts about this phenomenon as it's unfolding. My thoughts have not really changed. I would say that I have refined some of my thoughts since this post, but I'm going to go ahead and read this post to you. I wrote that I'm getting face peeler vibes from this New Jersey drone situation. This allegedly drone technology appears to be extremely advanced, but not as anomalous as typical UFO activity, which is precisely what was happening in the Peruvian Amazon last year. Okay, so in other words, there are components of the phenomenon that seem quite conventional. As I've said, we've already identified one of the drones in operation, the XP4. But at the same time, there are seemingly unconventional attributes here that people are observing. So this is all very reminiscent of the face peeler phenomenon. I wrote in this post that I'm currently contemplating 3 possibilities. Number 1, foreign actors. It is possible that either Russia and or China or Iran, backed by China, are deploying these drones over military installations and critical infrastructure as a show of force. These drones could be carrying surveillance technology or even nuke or pathogenic, in other words, anthrax payloads, and this is why the Pentagon is hesitant to shoot them down. Anthrax or fentanyl. You know, one of the real dangers of modern drone warfare is the capability of drones to carry pathogenic or chemical agents, such as anthrax and fentanyl. This is something that is very little discussed today, but it is a clear and present danger. Our military our defense capabilities are primarily focused on intercepting ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles, or intercepting various kinds of air or sea craft, such as conventional aircraft, fighter jets, submarines, and the like. I think that drone incursions are still a gap in our security apparatus. So I believe that the foreign actor contingency here, this possibility is still on the table. We'll talk a little bit about this more as we progress. Number two, again, these are the three possibilities that I'm currently contemplating. Number two, U.S. government and or private aerospace contractors. And there's a caveat in here. So it is also possible that these drones are being deployed by elements of our military and or private aerospace contractors in a surveillance operation responding to a threat or legitimate UFO activity. One could also conceive of a scenario in which a rogue element, and this is the caveat, a rogue element is sending a message to the incoming administration or the government at large. What do I mean by a rogue element? I'm talking about a paramilitary group or a faction within the military or intelligence community that is rogue, that has launched an operation not directly being coordinated by the United States government or our military. Okay, so that's a wild card here in this second possibility. Again, we're talking about that the drones may, in fact, be a U.S. government operation of some kind, and there's been a lot of talk about this, and argumentation about this recently, that these drones might have been deployed in a surveillance capacity. In other words, they're looking for, let's say, a rogue nuke or some sort of a weapon that has gone missing. And let's keep in mind that there's a lot of weapons, I think, that have gone missing in Ukraine. Ukraine, we now know, had biolabs, and they were U.S.-sponsored biolabs, and so who knows what sort of pathogenic weapons were being developed in Ukraine, and what happened to that technology. You know, in the fog of war, that's a really good time for warheads, nukes, pathogenic agents, chemical weapons to go missing, or even to be taken by various private factions and then sold on the black market. When you have a situation unfolding like in Ukraine, that chaos, that fog of war, battlefield chaos, opens up a lot of possibilities. So it is very, very plausible that what we're looking at right now is, in fact, a government operation of some kind in which a particular aerial technologies have been deployed that are looking for signatures, are scanning for signatures from a nuclear device, a dirty bomb, or some kind of a chemical agent, something along those lines. And there's a lot of talk about this. Why a lot of people think that this could not possibly be the explanation, because the fact that the drones are flying at night is a real hang-up for a lot of people. And then also you have some what appears to be legitimate UFO activity in the mix. So let's put a bookmark in that thought for a moment, and let's talk about the third possibility here. Again, referring to my X post the other day. So the third possibility is legitimate UFO activity. We may be looking at a UFO flap. UFOs have been known to mimic conventional aircraft. It is possible that these are not actually drones at all, or at least some of them, but unconventional, non-human technology. This would certainly explain the government's equivocal response to the phenomenon. There is simply nothing they can do about it. So I should say that the second contingency here, that this is the U.S. government looking for a rogue nuke, let's say, that also would explain the government's bizarre messaging, contradictory messaging, because they don't want to incite panic and a mass exodus from the East Coast. So, in addition to these possibilities, I wrote in my post on X, we should also be suspicious of a disclosure counteroffensive designed to gin up hysteria and speculation about UFOs, only to be debunked later with a definitive prosaic explanation. This would certainly be an effective way to condition people to ignore anomalous aerial phenomena in the future. So what do I mean by this? What I'm saying is let's, for the sake of argument, let's say that what we're seeing here is a legitimate UFO flap. In other words, this is a heightened incursion of UFOs over our airspace on the East Coast, and the government knows that it can't hide the phenomenon. It can't possibly hide it because everybody's got cell phones, and we can all take video and photographs. So really the only way that the government can cover this up, a legitimate UFO flap, is to confuse the situation by flooding the zone, so to speak, with conventional technology, filling the sky with drones, and then being very confusing about the messaging regarding what's happening. That could be happening, okay? That certainly is in play. Could be in play, rather. So that would make a lot of sense to me. I mean, if there's a lot of UFO activity happening in a particular area, and if I'm an operative of the Pentagon and I'm sitting in a briefing and we're discussing what can we do to respond to this phenomenon, how can we keep the public from panicking, but also we don't want to have to explain this, right? We don't want to have to come out and figure out how to explain this UFO phenomenon, this UFO flap, to the public who's taking video and photographs of it nightly. What do we do? What can we do? Well, let's throw up hundreds of drones, thousands of drones into the mix. Let's throw them up there in the sky and then be very confusing in our messaging about it. And then later on, when the UFO flap subsides, then we can bring forth some prosaic explanation about why we did this, why we had to deploy these drones, some national security thing or whatever. Okay, so that's in play, all right? Those are all three of those contingencies are on the table. I'm still contemplating one of those three as the explanation. It could be a combination of a couple of them, by the way. As I said, it could be that these drones have been deployed in response to a UFO incursion. So it's a both-and situation. That's certainly plausible. It's, we may have deployed these drones ourselves, not only to confuse the general populace about what's happening in the sky, but also in an attempt to intercept and surveil the UFOs. And one thing that we can say, I think, definitively at this point is that orbs have been seen. Orbs are in the mix. So aside from the drones, and yes, absolutely, there are drones. That's for sure. There is conventional technology being deployed for whatever reason, yes. But there's also orbs. We know this to be true because Channel 7 News, ABC News, captured a video of an orb in New Jersey. They filmed it for an extended period of time. I'm sure most of you have seen this video. And it appears that this is, in fact, an orb. Now, could it be something else? Sure, it could be something else that we're not contemplating presently, or that at least I haven't countenanced yet, but it appears to be an orb. And it would not surprise me at all to discover that there are a lot of orbs in the mix. And orbs are obviously non-conventional technology. Orbs are balls of light. I do believe that at the core of that, there is something physical. There's something technological. It could be plasma technology. There's all kinds of different theories about the orbs. But what we can say about orbs is that they are unconventional. They constitute an unconventional technology. And it appears that orbs are in the mix. Now, are orbs showing up in consequence of our own drone activity? Are they monitoring whatever we're doing, whatever we are doing, or are we monitoring them? Did we deploy the drones because of the orbs? And are orbs the only unconventional technology being seen? Are there saucers? I don't know. I haven't seen any convincing footage yet of saucers. It's hard to make heads or tails of so much of this because this is all being filmed. Most of this is being filmed at night. But I will remind you, I'm going to remind you again, okay? Conventional drone technology is in play, and specifically, the XP4 has been sighted during daytime hours. The XP4 is out there. And it does account for some of the sightings, maybe a majority of the sightings. So please keep that in mind as we continue here. So I believe that both conventional and non-conventional aircraft may be in play at this point. I was watching Ross Colhart and Lou Elizondo have a discussion about this, and Lou suggested that, and he admits that this would be a wild card, that this is probably unlikely, but we can contemplate it here as a possibility. He suggested that we may be looking at a seeding operation. And what he means by seeding operation is that sometimes conventional components are seeded at crash retrieval sites, for example, by the recovery team to obfuscate any unconventional components that may have been missed. And Lou was talking about, conventional engine parts or aircraft parts that when a recovery team shows up on scene, and we're not even talking about just a UFO recovery team, just a recovery team we have some sort of a experimental aircraft that crashes somewhere, and we send out a recovery team because we don't want our adversaries to get this technology, and we don't want the public to be aware of this technology because we're trying to keep it under wraps for national security reasons. So we'll send out a recovery team. They will do a sweep of the area. They will recover all of the pieces and parts of the craft that they can find, that they can detect with their equipment, and then to make sure that should somebody else catch wind of this and go out and look with their own metal detectors or what have you, go out and look for fragments of this craft, they seed the environment with conventional components, conventional pieces and parts of automobiles and aircraft to throw people off the scent and to confuse the situation. So Lou is suggesting that maybe that's what we're seeing unfolding here in this particular phenomenon. This, of course, I already talked about this, throwing a bunch of drones up in the air, in the sky at night to confound the public's perception of a legitimate UFO flap that is currently underway. And when we say UFO flap, that terminology just means a period of time where there is increased heightened UFO activity over a particular area. And again, I think that is certainly a possibility. So are we flooding the zone with drones? Is that what we're doing to cover up UFO activity? Don't know. Could be. However, I do acknowledge, as I said, that there appear to be orbs in the mix at the very least. So there is some unconventional technology, apparently, in the mix. But I am not convinced that most of what people are seeing constitute UFO activity. I think that most of what people are seeing are drones. And I am leaning away presently from a UFO explanation here. Again, there may be orbs in the mix here, but I don't believe that the drone activity is necessarily in response to UFOs. I'm leaning toward, although I'm totally open to that, I'm leaning toward the first two possibilities that I mentioned. Foreign actors, or these are our drones that have been deployed to look for some kind of a rogue nuke or dirty bomb, or something like that. Why do I think that? Well, let's talk about foreign actors a little bit more. China is presently building drone aircraft carriers. This was reported in May of 2024 by Naval News. We have satellite imagery of these carriers that China is building, and we have surmised, based on the imagery, based on the data we have collected, that China is building drone aircraft carriers. In fact, they launched their first drone carrier in December of 2022. So they're not just in the process of developing this particular kind of naval vessel. They've actually deployed one already back in 2022. And these drone carriers are smaller than conventional aircraft carriers. Obviously, drones are smaller than fighter jets, so they don't have to be as large. Their landing decks don't have to be as large. And these things basically amount to drone motherships. So you can imagine, instead of an aircraft carrier, I don't know how many fighter jets that China's current aircraft carriers, conventional aircraft carriers, are capable of transporting over the ocean. Maybe a dozen or so. I really don't know. But the drone carriers could potentially, I mean, if you're talking about all shapes and sizes, could potentially carry hundreds, if not thousands, of drones. And this could enable over-the-horizon capabilities. Okay, I hear a lot of discussion about this cannot be foreign adversaries. This cannot be a foreign actor because this would imply over-the-horizon capabilities. And for whatever reason, people seem to think that China doesn't have these capabilities. Now, over-the-horizon capability means that you can fly a drone beyond your what's the terminology? Out of sight, let's say. So I'm trying to think of the technical term here. The technical term is over the horizon. So currently, drones have to be within a certain distance from the operator, or from a satellite, or from another aircraft that's flying in the vicinity. So an over-the-horizon capability would mean that this drone can, like a ballistic missile or like a conventional aircraft, can fly far away from the operator. And again, there's a lot of talk out there that capability doesn't exist, or at least that our adversaries don't have it. I don't believe that. I do not believe that that's true. I personally believe that both the United States military and China already have drones with over-the-horizon capabilities. Why do I think that? Well, because the United States has probably at this point, I don't know what the official number is, and the official number is not large enough because we have secret satellite programs. The military has secret satellite programs. We have thousands of satellites in space, just the United States alone. China has over 600 satellites in orbit. So we need to keep this in the equation here when we're thinking about drones. China has over 600 satellites in orbit, okay? So let's think about this. We have satellites orbiting above. We have aircraft that can be flying in the vicinity. And we have now drone motherships, drone carriers that China has built that can be also in the vicinity. So we have 3 communication platforms that can be relaying data to the drones and that the drones can be communicating with. We have satellites, we have conventional aircraft, and we have carriers in play. So the notion that, oh, this can't be a foreign adversary, this can't be a foreign actor because we don't have over-the-horizon capabilities, I don't think is a very logical conclusion. I'm convinced personally, as I said, that we do have these capabilities. And I would go so far as to say that China may very well be much more advanced at this point than any other nation in drone technologies. And the reason why I say that is because China has focused on drone technologies. Many of us have seen, even in the commercial sector, China is doing absolutely incredible things with drones. We've seen their displays, their coordinated displays, the mass drones that they'll fly up in the air, and the drones will operate in coordination, and they will come together in various configurations. Like I saw one that thousands of drones formed like a flying dragon in the sky, and other kinds of things that were being depicted in an air show, essentially. And that is certainly happening, not just in China. We have incredible swarm capabilities now, both in the military as well as the private sector. We are capable at this point of doing absolutely incredible things with drones. So it may be that China is indeed more advanced than we are with this technology and is currently demonstrating their drone air superiority. They could be displaying their drone air superiority right now in the continental United States by deploying these drones that have radar jamming capabilities. And there's nothing that anomalous in my mind about the radar jamming capabilities of some of these craft. People are associating radar jamming capabilities with UFOs. Like, it must be a UFO because they can jam radars. No, we have plenty of conventional craft that are capable of jamming radars. I mean, if you can attach a radar jamming apparatus to a fighter jet, you can certainly attach one to a drone. There's no reason why you can't. And you could also attach, as I was talking about earlier, you could also attach counter-drone capabilities, instrumentation to these drones, so that if another aircraft comes in proximity, they can emit some sort of a directed EMP pulse or something like that, or electromagnetic pulse, or some other kind of technology to disable the electronics on that aircraft. This doesn't mean that it's a UFO just because it can jam a radar and has counter-drone capabilities. That does not indicate that these are UFOs. It does not indicate that these are UFOs either if they go dark. And that's another capability that these craft apparently have. They have gone dark in some cases where people have put spotlights on them, or where aircraft have been scrambled to fly around them. The drones have gone dark. Big deal. That is not that anomalous, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so keep that in mind. Some people are out there saying these could not be regular drones because they jam the radars, they interfere with the electronics of the craft that come into proximity with them, and they go dark. This is all conventional technology. Okay? If one of these drones makes a right-angle turn at high speed, at supersonic speeds, okay, then we're not talking about drones anymore. But as far as I'm aware, that has not yet been observed. Setting aside the orbs, setting aside the orb sightings, whether or not these are actually orbs, I don't know. I suspect they are, some of them. Those certainly have those kind of capabilities. They can disappear. They can make right-angle turns at high rates of speed. They are capable of performing all of those aerial maneuvers that are consonant with the UFO phenomenon. But so far, I've yet to see any footage of drones doing anything that is beyond the capabilities of current conventional technology. So I am not willing to rule out any of these contingencies at this time. We simply don't know exactly what's going on, but I am willing at this point, and I will reinforce this here at the end, I absolutely am willing to concede, to acknowledge that conventional drone technology is in play, at least at some level. Conventional drone technology is in play. So don't listen to people who are saying these aren't drones, because many of them are. That is not a valid, that is not a logical conclusion at this point. So let's not get caught up in the hysteria. Conventional technology has been deployed. And I'm going to remind you that many of these drones have been seen traveling up and down the New Jersey coastline, and probably most of them, okay? And these flight paths coincide, not coincidentally, with the Joint McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst base, again, which is home to the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division. That is an important piece of this puzzle, guys. That's an important piece of this puzzle. It cannot be discounted. So all options are currently on the table. Anybody who says definitively that they know what's going on, I think is not being forthright, let's say. I certainly don't know exactly what's happening here, but these are my thoughts, and maybe in the coming weeks we're going to get some resolution, and maybe not. I suspect not. I suspect that this thing is just going to fade into the background, and if it's a UFO flap, it will probably subside, and we'll never get any real explanation from the government. And if we do, it will be some prosaic thing. It is worth mentioning here at the end that there was a report, I think it came out a couple of days ago, that some radioactive material went missing from a container. And not like a nuclear warhead, but I forget, it was a medical, I believe it was something to do with a medical device. Could be wrong on that. Some radioactive material went missing. And the drones were deployed, the implication is that the drones were deployed to search for that radioactive material. This, to me, this feels like a cover-up. That story feels like a cover story for something larger, for something much more dangerous than just a little bit of radioactive medical device, radioactive material going missing. I am not willing to jettison the possibility that we are, in fact, looking for a rogue nuke, because that scenario would answer all of the questions, okay? It would answer all of the questions. It would explain why, for example, the Pentagon and the White House are not telling us the truth, why they're not being honest with the American people. Because if they were to come out and say, we have deployed these drones, because we suspect, we have reason to believe that a nuclear warhead, a rogue nuclear warhead, has entered the continental United States, probably somewhere on the East Coast, and we need to find it. The Pentagon is never going to tell you that. The White House is never going to tell you that. Now, I've heard people say that, and I believe even Ryan Graves has come out and said that that can't be what's happening because certain protocols, this doesn't fit certain protocols, and it doesn't explain why the drones are operating at night. I don't believe that. I don't believe that that's a valid, or at least a conclusive explanation, a conclusive, let's say, debunking of that scenario. I think that there could be any number of reasons why they would be flying these drones at night, not the least of which is they're flying so many that they don't want the public to be even more concerned. If you're flying these drones during the day, then there's no denying what they are. Everyone will see what kind of drones they are. And we may be deploying, by the way, and this is something no one's talking about, this whole issue about we wouldn't be flying these drones at night. Yes, we would. If we have advanced drone technology that we don't want our adversaries to see, we would fly them at night. So if we're deploying advanced technology that is not in the public space, that has capabilities beyond what has been publicized by the military, then we would fly it at night. Yes, we would. So that's one explanation of why we would be deploying this technology at nighttime. The other explanation is there may be some kind of technology that has been that is being deployed that operates optimally at night. Maybe we're looking for a signature in some sort of a signature on the spectrum of light that is best observed in nighttime conditions. Maybe the sunlight interferes with some of these capabilities. Maybe it interferes with the technology, with the scanning technology, with whatever it is, the laser, for example. And we actually had this problem when we deployed our ground penetrating radar in Peru. Now, most of you at this point, I think, know that we have, myself and my partner, Gary Haven, we've acquired a state-of-the-art ground-penetrating radar system that operates on a drone platform. So we fly a large drone. I forget exactly what it is. It's a very large drone. I'm trying to think of the actual version of the drone that we fly, but it's not a small one. It's a rather large drone, and we attach our radar to the bottom of this drone, and the radar employs a laser. And we were having problems in Paracas when we were using this drone in various parts of Peru, but specifically in the desert around Paracas, we were running into an issue. During the day, when the sun was glaring down on the sand, it was causing the sun was refracting off of the sand, the sunlight, and it was interfering with our laser. And that laser was integral to the operation of this drone and radar. It helped it helped the drone maintain a consistent elevation and a consistent altitude, and it also had to do with some other components of the drone. So I can envision a scenario in which a particular kind of technology, looking for a particular kind of signature, would be deployed at nighttime, specifically. And let's keep in mind that just because some people have observed these lights in the sky changing their configuration, morphing into different shapes, that does not automatically mean that what we're looking at is aliens. As we've already demonstrated, the PX4 has the capability to adjust its configuration. It can go from a fixed-wing configuration to a quadcopter configuration in midair, mid-flight, and we need to keep that in mind. Okay, so I hope that my analysis thus far of this very, very bizarre mystery drone phenomenon has been helpful to you. I'm not willing to commit to any of these positions at this point. I am leaning more in the direction of this being a government operation, some kind of a military or agency operation looking for a rogue nuke, or it could still be China. Guys, it could still be China. And I know a lot of you are out there saying, no, it can't be China, it can't be Russia because of X, Y, Z. And I'm telling you, yes, it can. Yes, it can. I mean, you know, people say, well, if this is a foreign adversary, why haven't we taken it down yet? Why haven't we shot these things out of the sky? Even President Trump made these remarks. Well, why did it take us so long to shoot that freaking balloon out of the sky? That what we knew, it was a Chinese spy balloon. We knew that, and there were more than one. We knew that, and yet we allowed that balloon to traverse the entirety of the continental United States from the West Coast to the East Coast, and we didn't shoot it down until it was over the Atlantic Ocean. So, I mean, that happened. That happened. And there could be any number of reasons why, if this is a foreign actor, it could be any number of reasons why we wouldn't shoot these out of the sky. Number one, because if they are carrying some kind of nuclear device, it could explode, and we don't want that. Number two, if they are carrying some kind of a pathogenic agent like anthrax or a chemical agent like fentanyl, which, by the way, can be aerosolized by these drones, then we don't want to release the payload. We don't want to do that. And also, if the Pentagon and the White House were to acknowledge this is China, and they are flying over our restricted airspace, then that's war. Okay, that's World War III. That's World War III. That's an act of war. That's an act of open aggression. And that could also be a very prudent reason not to shoot them down, but to wait until there's a more opportune moment to take care of the threat. Or it's possible we've already opened back channels to China and whoever we think this is, and we're already making threatening postures. We've already taken a threatening posture behind the scenes with them, and we're dealing with this through diplomatic channels. Okay, we could just go on and on and on and on and on. Just don't believe that it can't be foreign actors, or it can't be the government, or that it can't be legitimate UFO activity. All three of those things are possible at this stage in the game. And you could have a mix of, as I said, UFO activity with the other contingencies. Now, I'm getting very repetitive here, so I'm going to shut this down. Guys, I am doing a conference in Bozeman, Montana. Next year, 2025, June 2025, right here in my home state, my hometown of Bozeman, and it is going to be epic. I've got some guest speakers that I don't want to announce yet because I've got some plans that I'm making behind the scenes. There will be some very notable guest speakers who will be joining me, and we're going to be talking about all things Nephilim, UFOs. Maybe there'll be some more data about this drone situation that we'll be discussing. We'll be talking about cyclic cataclysm, and we will be discussing, obviously, as always, a Bible prophecy and some of the theological implications with all of these topics. So if you're interested in these topics, come join me. You can get tickets at alberinoevents.com. There's also a VIP trip that is almost sold out at this point. We're going to Sage Wall, and then we're going to go hang out in the mountains, and it's going to be a lot of fun. There are some tickets left for the VIP if you're interested in that. That will be on the 26th of June, but the actual conference event is going to take place from the 27th through the 28th. And I also want to encourage you guys to join my members community. I have an incredible members community. We are engaging in some of the most fascinating topics that you can imagine. I'm doing live stream Q&As. We're having live stream book clubs. Right now we're covering Cydonia, The Secret Chronicles of Mars, this book right here, which is phenomenal. I always say that this is the most consequential book that I have personally ever read right here. And it's a very, very complicated book, and we are going through it. This was written by the late David Flynn. In my members community, we're going through David Flynn's book with David Flynn's twin brother, Mark, and as well, we're also privileged to be joined by David Flynn's daughter, Tycee, and you are not going to get this kind of content anywhere else. If you want to be a member, if you want to sign up for a subscription, go over to the alberinoanalysis.com. You'll see all of the relevant information there. And we also have a private social media platform in there. So it's like our own Facebook wall and our own Facebook group where we can discuss all kinds of topics. Everybody is just intelligent and accommodating and gracious. There's no heated argumentation in there, and there are no trolls. So this is the community you've been waiting for, you've been looking for, the Alberino Analysis members community. Come join us.